So,
Hello.
sorry for the slight delay, and you're already in the future right now, right? So you're ready tomorrow,
Exactly. It's Monday here.
an early riser. Uh,
Oh,
ac-
it's 8 a.m. Monday morning, so almost time to start work.
yeah, you're the second speaker from New Zealand to pick this late slot, because this is actually the Americas slot, and I started getting some New Zealanders popping. I was like, wait a minute, no, it is that late, no, so late it becomes early, for them, and
Yeah,
it's great.
exactly.
You can join us, and you're again you're with us via the Global Shapers Network, and you're working in a sector that is not only very relevant for teenagers, it's also very difficult for them to have access to, right? To the venture capital and investment. It just feels like coveted mystique, and oh, you have to have a background in finance or economics, when in fact, not really, right? You could work at a VC and you're a specialist in a sector and industry segments that the no, LPs, in this case, the limited partners, they gave you money to focus on those specific areas. So let's try to demystify a little bit VC work and the rest of the industry. And thanks a lot for sharing your wisdom.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you very much, Marcelo, for inviting me, and hopefully I can demystify some of that. But also, I guess, give an example of my career journey to today, which, as you've said or alluded to, I certainly didn't start out aiming to work in impact investment. My journey has been all over the place, and I want to share that because for all of you on the call today, I expect your journeys to be equally varied, and just want you to know that that is normal and actually a good thing as you figure out what it is that you are most passionate about doing. I do have a few slides that I was going to share. Marcelo, is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, I should be able to, because you're a co-host.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I've called this presentation Squiggly Lines because that is what my career, and I think a number of people's career, has ended up being, is a very squiggly line. So I will talk through this briefly now. So firstly, just as an introduction, so my name is Jackson. I'm from Auckland in New Zealand, or Aotearoa. Professionally, during the day, I work for Ākina, which I'll talk to in more detail later on. But here I look after our investment work, so really trying to build impact investment in New Zealand. On top of that, and as Marcelo mentioned, I'm part of the Global Shapers community. That is an initiative of the World Economic Forum, which aims to enable young people to improve the world, whilst also informing the World Economic Forum's agenda of improving the world at their scale, and Global Shapers, sorry, and more at the community scale within our local regions. I'm also really pleased, last year was lucky enough to be accepted into the Obama Foundation's Obama Leaders Program. So I was part of the inaugural cohort of 200 leaders within the Asia Pacific region who came together to learn how to be better leaders effectively, better understand what values-driven leadership looks like, and how we can continue leading our region and internationally to improve the world through that leadership. Also lucky enough, although very unexpectedly, but lucky enough to be trained by former Vice President Al Gore in his climate reality training program. So I went through a week-long training program with the Vice President to better understand the climate issues facing the world. And the presentation that he shares with people to help them understand it, as well as the solutions and what can be done to change it. And finally, an avid supporter, huge fan of Make-A-Wish. It's a charity that a number of you may have heard of, operates all around the world to make life-changing wishes, the one true wish for children with critical illnesses. So it's something I've given my time to for a number of years and recently joined the board of. So that's just a quick introduction. As you're probably starting to see, there's a variety in there already, and the variety, it gets much more varied. Because I started off my journey with this really clear vision of wanting to be a lawyer. Through school and things, I enjoyed English. The teachers told me that I should therefore study law. And so that is the journey I went down. I went to a university in New Zealand with one of the leading law schools here, and signed up for a 5-year study program to become a lawyer. And that was what I thought my life was going to be. I was very determined I would be a lawyer for the rest of my life, and that would be success. As you're probably guessing, and as I alluded to, I highly expect this to happen to all of you. That didn't quite go to plan. So in my second year of university, I was studying in Christchurch in New Zealand. We had quite a major earthquake. It was a size 7 earthquake. There were over 100 lives lost. Most of the city was demolished. There was a significant amount of silt or liquefaction that came up out of the ground. Talking thousands of tons all across the city that just caused widespread damage. That also meant that we weren't able to go to university. I wasn't able to continue studying law for that time because it was just such a significant disruption. So that meant we had 10,000 students sitting around their houses, not studying, and instead just doing all of the other things that students do. But one friend of mine, quite a visionary and amazing friend, Sam Johnson, said, look, we have these students here doing nothing. They're not able to study. Meanwhile, we have a city here that has been devastated. There is silt everywhere. There is buildings fallen down. There is people who are lonely. They need to be checked in on and unwell. How can we join these two things together to improve our city? And the answer to that was the Student Volunteer Army. So my friend created a Facebook event initially, just a really simple step, said, hey, students with some spare time, come to this site and we will then distribute you around the city to clean up the city, to shovel the silt, to knock on doors and check on people, to clean up the building waste and things like that. We had this spare time, there was work that was needed, so come along, get off the couch and come and clean up your city. Amazingly, Sam, my friend, ended up getting over 10,000 students out of their houses into the city and significantly cleaned up Christchurch. I have to admit, I was one of the last students to get off my couch and go and join in. My goal, if you like, at that time was to be a lawyer. So this kind of community work and volunteering didn't really interest me. But all my friends were doing it, so I also went in and got involved. And I was genuinely surprised, but quite happily surprised to find out that I really enjoyed doing it. Being out in the community and serving that community and giving back made me a lot happier than studying law and the thought of practicing law. So this was just a really confusing thing for me, a welcome but confusing thing for me, because I had spent so long, years of my life dedicated to becoming a lawyer, and suddenly we'd had this major earthquake. I'd gone out for a couple of hours and served with the community, and within just that small amount of time realized that was something I enjoyed more. So I was confused but happy, and accordingly decided I would just do a bit more volunteering and a bit more service. So I got more involved with the Student Volunteer Army, ended up working quite heavily with them to continue improving Christchurch and really enable more people to volunteer and get that same reward that I got. I also continued studying law. I was in about my 3rd year by now, so I continued those studies, but at the same time got more and more involved outside of university in volunteering. What that led to was something called the concert, which was an idea we had to really embed volunteering in the community. What could we do to kind of change the value of money, change the value of time, change the value of service? And instead of someone going to a concert and paying $100 for a ticket, what if they went and paid with their time by volunteering in the community? So that was what we created, a system where we found a whole lot of volunteering projects that were needed within Christchurch, and created a website where people could register for these projects, complete at least 4 hours of volunteering, and in exchange for that 4 hours of their time, receive a ticket to this concert. The concert was one of the biggest concerts in New Zealand that year. We had, it was an all-day event. We had thousands of people turn up, over 20 different artists come and play. And all of these people were there knowing that each of them had each volunteered within their community and served and improved the community in that way. So it was a really transformative event for Christchurch, for me, and really embedded that idea in me that I really enjoyed giving back and serving, if you like. I wasn't paid for any of this, but really, I really enjoyed the process. Through all of this work, we became pretty good at understanding how to coordinate volunteers and help these people, get to the right tasks at the right time before moving on to the next. So much so that we got a bit of an international reputation for being experts in disaster response, and particularly the volunteer management aspects of that. So accordingly, when there were other disasters around the world, from tsunami in Japan to a hurricane in New York, we were actually asked to come over to these places and help them do the same thing, coordinate their volunteers to speed up the cleanup. So Hurricane Sandy happened in New York and in New Jersey and other parts of America soon after that concert. And so myself and a colleague were flown over to New York to share the learnings that we had from Christchurch. Christchurch had 1 to 2 volunteering organizations, and there was still a lot of coordination needed between those 10,000 volunteers. As you can imagine, New York with Hurricane Sandy had 10 plus significant volunteering organizations and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of volunteers that wanted to support the cleanup of New York, but lacked the infrastructure to be able to efficiently do so. So we went over there, were told we were needed to kind of make things a whole lot more efficient and more effective. And hopefully help to do so by creating more of a system where they could coordinate the different aspects of cleaning up New York. And so, as a reminder, this is still when I'm studying law. So by this stage, it would have been about my 4th year at university, and I had 1 more year to go. But as you can kind of probably sense, I was really enjoying this. I was giving back at almost 40 hours a week, as well as all of my study. And it made me feel so fulfilled. I was helping other people and really perpetuated this confusion that I was meant to be a lawyer. But I was 4 years into my study, so it was a bit, I didn't feel responsible dropping that and pursuing this kind of community service immediately. So instead, I finished my studies, ended up practicing law for several years, really wanted to experience it just like I did with experiencing volunteering. I wanted to experience it and confirm whether it was for me or not. And I happily confirmed that it was not for me. Whilst it was valuable and I learned some amazing skills that I am really grateful for learning, it also just didn't make me as happy as volunteering and serving our communities and really enabling that positive change that can change our world. So because of that, I left law and started seeking that change, if you like. From early on, I identified that that business is a really, is an important vehicle for change. And charity is a really effective way of delivering change at times. But those two, 5+ years ago, weren't often done together. So I kind of had often talked about this thing of how could we make charity operate more like a business, or business more like a charity? How can we combine those two things so that change can more effectively happen? I went to a couple of startups that were kind of purpose-led startups, if you like, and then eventually stumbled across Ākina, which is where I currently work. Ākina, our purpose is to transform the New Zealand economy by harnessing the power of impact. So basically, we're trying to enable this private sector, these businesses, these charities, all of these organizations to be more impactful, because we know it's that impact that is what's needed to really change the world. So we do that in 3 main ways. One, we have an impact consulting arm of the business that provides impact-oriented expertise to all sorts of organizations, from large listed businesses through to small startup businesses, helping them all understand, manage, and improve their impact. Impact investment is where I fit in. So broadly here, we're trying to build impact investment in New Zealand. And by that, we mean investing for the financial return, but also, and crucially, for the social or environmental return that the business that you invest in can also deliver. This is a really crucial way to change the world, and just an exciting lever for me to really combine those two things that I discussed of charity and business. If we can get more money into that space to enable those outcomes even further, that really delivers to the purpose and what makes me happy. So I've been working in this space for over 5 years, and really excited by it. To Marcelo's point at the start, it is not something I have financial training in. It's not something I studied. It's not something I thought about, even knew existed when I was at school. But through the various different jobs and roles that I've had, I got more and more experience in the relevant areas, and now have the right experience to be able to kind of guide and understand this space and navigate impact investments and the market building aspects of that. The squiggly line, which I'll talk more about soon, has enabled me to really thrive in this space. Finally, we also do a lot of social procurement work, where we're trying to enable procurement being buying large contracts, basically. We're trying to enable those large contracts to be more socially oriented. And how can we get those contracts to be purchased through social enterprises or impact-led businesses and really enable change that way? So to wrap things up, I kind of wanted to share with you three messages, 3 lessons that I've really learned through my career journey, and I have a feeling will be quite relevant to each of you. And one, it is most importantly, the main one is the squiggly line. So this is a reflection of where my career journey, if you like. Started off wanting to be a lawyer, didn't even know impact investment existed. But through a variety of amazing experiences and going all over the place and stopping law and having people tell me I was crazy and that sort of thing, ended up in a place where I'm really happy and grateful that I work there. The key thing I would add here, though, that's really important is it's really crucial to be intentional with the decisions you're making and the twists and turns you are steering this line on. Because ultimately you do need to steer it. You don't want to just kind of necessarily go with the flow, but you need to decide, look, law isn't working for me, for example, because of these reasons. Instead, I want these other things. What is a job that I can get that I can trial these things and see if I enjoy those things more? So intentionality around your squiggly line is really important. Be conscious and determined and diligent around where you're at and where you want to get to, and make decisions to get there. But remember, in doing so, you only get out what you put in. Both personally, we've only got finite energy, and all of this stuff can take energy at times, both physical and emotional. So make sure you're looking after yourself for starters, and making sure you're always fit and healthy and well, so that you can pursue these things. And also, the same applies to kind of the energy you're putting into things. So if we think back to me volunteering, that first time getting off the couch and volunteering to improve Christchurch, if I just gave out the bare minimum, then I would have only got back the bare minimum, and I wouldn't have had that amazing opportunity to organise that big concert, to go to New York and help them clean up, and had these amazing other experiences. But instead of putting out the minimum, I put out the maximum. I gave my everything. I was enjoying it and gave all that I could. As I say, worked virtually full time there, and consequently got back these amazing experiences. So would just really encourage you to put out as much as you can, and know that you'll then get it in return. And finally, this is not COVID related, but it's funnily enough, these surgical masks are quite common on Google. But it is about masks, and it's about as a metaphor or an analogy for a really common feeling I think we will all experience. If you haven't already, it will probably start around what we call imposter syndrome, or not being good enough or skilled enough or capable enough to do whatever the opportunity is to do. This is a really normal feeling. I don't know many people that don't get to this feeling, but I do know that the people that do often leads to success. It leads to them being out of their depth, working extremely hard, and therefore succeeding through that hard work. Because they put on a mask, they put on a fake front potentially to demonstrate that they're going to be able to do this, and that leads to them actually being able to do it. So there will be times when you think, well, I'm not going to be able to do this, but put that mask on, tell yourself you can, work extremely hard, intentionally in the direction you're going, and I'm pretty sure you will be able to do it. So that's me. I'm conscious of time, and we may be over time, but if there is time for questions, I'm happy to take them. And thank you, Marcelo.
That's great. So it's I think it's very reassuring in a way that your journey seems to have started with disaster, right? It's such a almost 10 years now. It's so sad that more than 100 people died in a single building, and had 10,000 houses that had to be repaired, restored, and destroyed and rebuilt. And it kind of gives you a baseline of, I have a really good life. Like, compared to what I've seen, you understand why people who volunteer at the young age and they go to war zones, or basically countries recovering. Of course, you don't want to send volunteers to an active war zone, but the rebuilding effort is very powerful when it comes to defining your values or reinforcing your values in the way that you most likely wouldn't be involved in volunteering if you didn't have the seeds that can grow into this ability to be deeply caring about others. So I'm glad that this is how your journey started. And the question that I have for you is, how can people do a quick self-check to figure out if this is the kind of stuff that is also for them? What are the top 3 signs that you should really give it a go to figure out if you like to give back to the community from a young age?
Yeah, it's a great question, and something I have spoken to a number of people about, particularly in the professional space, because I'm sure as a teenager, you're starting to think about what do you want to do, and how do you want to spend your time, and you may be uncertain about what the answer to that is. But I hate to disappoint, but that uncertainty probably won't go away in the short term. I know a number of adults working in professional jobs for a number of years who equally kind of stop and think, oh, what do I want to do, and how do I figure this out? The really simple tool that I use with all sorts of different people that has proven to be effective is just encouraging them to write down just a simple list. And you know, the things you enjoy doing and the things you don't enjoy doing. Don't get too hung up in job titles. You know, don't put lawyer, for example, or doctor or brain surgeon. But put just the fun. What do you like doing on your weekends? Is it you know, talking with people? Is it being creative and maybe painting pictures? Is it going for ultra marathon runs? You know, doing long distance running. Think about, is it eating food? Is it cooking food? Think about the very simple things that you enjoy doing and write that in a list. You know, just up to 5 things, write that in a list. Equally, if you can, think about what you don't enjoy doing. What are those things that you couldn't think of anything you'd like to do least? Maybe that is a long distance run. That would be one of the things for me on the not doing, would be a very long run. You know, what are the things you don't enjoy doing? Maybe you don't enjoy interacting with people, for example. Think about what that is and write that list. And then once you've got that list, you can start thinking about what are the things that sit in the middle that could be a good way for me to spend my time. And if, for example, you enjoy being outside, working with the community and that sort of thing, that may lead towards that volunteering, you know, service type role in the community could be great for you. If you wrote numbers and financial projections and you know, understanding businesses, that might mean investment is a great thing for you. Write down what it is that you would love to do on your weekends, also what you wouldn't love to, what you would hate to do on your weekends, and hopefully there'll be some things that fall into the middle that could be a really effective way to spend your time.
I was just thinking, I've done ultra marathons as well, so you just don't feel very talkative when you're in the middle of one of those. Like your social skills are not exactly sharpened by running for 50 kilometers or more. But
Yeah, definitely. I would be on the floor. I wouldn't be able to function at all.
I 2 months ago I climbed the Mont Blanc, so it's 4,810 meters, and
Wow.
I started from the worst possible place, which is Chamonix Valley. So most people, they kind of shave off 1,300 meters by taking a train until the terminus. Like, nah, no, I'll give it a go. I'll see if I can make it all the way from the valley. And I just took my time. Right, there was this
Yeah.
crossing paths with people, having conversations, the birds, singing, beautiful day. So you can have this internal journey and still be connecting with everybody else whenever the opportunity arises. And your comments made me think about someone I worked with in a very, very challenging project in the telecommunication space, doing one of the largest community Wi-Fi networks in the world. Actually, was one of the first, but also one of the largest to be deployed. One of the guys who was a networking expert was absolutely unbearable. Like, from the big 5 personality traits, he was extremely abrasive. He was really difficult, and he was one of the nicest people I've ever met. He just hated showing how nice he was. Like, he had to be really disagreeable with everybody else. But then I say, this is really important, and you're the only one who can help us right now. He would always do it. He'll stay there for 18 hours in a row because he'll be so proud of his work. So you have very important cogs in very complex machines that are not necessarily what they seem to be, right? You don't really understand their function until you're in a situation where you absolutely have to leverage their capabilities. And sometimes you go like, oh, this guy is so difficult. Why is that? It's like, maybe it's a personal thing, or he always wanted to prove himself to his father and always got criticized, and this is how he operates. So if you have that level of empathy and ability to understand that different people need different types of kindness, you'll be better off, interfacing with others. So I think that one message worth mentioning here is like, try to put yourself in the position of the other person. If they're not treating you well, are they having a bad day? Do they have a different upbringing, or they come from a different culture? So give them the benefit of the doubt, and that makes it so much easier to work as a group and achieve great things.
Yeah, absolutely. I really agree with that. A saying that I often use in New Zealand, some of you may have heard of it, is "it takes two to tango." If you think of the dance tango, it takes two people to tango. And often when there are disagreements, whether it's in personal life, professional life, etc., it is very rare that it's only one person that is causing the problem. Generally it is two people involved or more, and it's everyone has a role in ultimately there being a disagreement, and equally everyone has a role in resolving that disagreement. And so if for any moment you find yourself in that situation, you're probably blaming others. It's natural for humans to do that, when really the first thing to do, as Marcelo has said, is look at yourself, and think, is there something that is that person having a bad day? Am I having a bad day? Start thinking about what you can do to change, to try and resolve it, before blaming someone else and expecting them to change, because it takes two to tango.
Yeah, so a little bit of patience, a lot of kindness, and you can do amazing things. And that can start at any age, right? It's something that teenagers are perfectly capable of doing. They have the right level of maturity, and let's hope that our platform can show them new opportunities where they can apply those skills and become better. The imposter syndrome is one way to fuel your passions. Is not the only one. In many cases, it becomes a very negative spiral where people are succeeding, but they're still punishing themselves so badly. And hopefully most of them will be able to overcome that phase and go like, you know what, it doesn't matter. I'm just walking slowly to the summit. And if the summit takes longer to achieve, it's a summit nonetheless, and I only have to compete with myself, right? That's probably the healthiest mindset, and is one of the hardest to understand, because it takes so long for it to get to that point. So that's why I was trying to accelerate them here.
Yeah, amazing. Well, hey, it's been really nice to spend some time with you all, and I wish you all the best on your journeys going forward. And don't worry if it's as squiggly as mine was.
Brilliant, Jackson. So thank you so much for your time, and yeah, enjoy your working Monday. It's fabulous that you
Thank
already
you.
started.
Enjoy your afternoons, evenings.
Right. We'll join you in the
Thanks,
future in a
Marcelo.
few hours. Take care. All the best.
Perfect. Well, you'll be welcome. All right. See you.
Bye.